This is J. Randall Wilkerson, author of the Heart Failure Recovery Plan, Successful Heart Regeneration Using Metabolic Enzymes. This is part 17 in a 58-part video series of the entire book, chapter by chapter. We recommend that you review the introductory video from our channel. That gives you the background. Part 17 goes into the most interesting part of all the enzymes, aloe vera enzymes. It is rated value 1 as critical for heart failure recovery and heart disease, both for prevention, treatment, and cure. Now, at first you may think, well, I've heard of aloe vera juices for the stomach. I've heard of using aloe vera on a burn or a cut, but like you, I never heard of eating it or drinking it until I encountered an individual from the Caribbean Islands. I learned from him that he had been consuming it for 45 years, and in his 80s, he rarely visits a doctor, is on no medications, and he's simply the healthiest elderly man I know. After I began to use it daily, I discovered that it's very common in South America, several countries in Asia, parts of Europe. In fact, there are whole plantations everywhere you look because they and their doctors, and cardiology doctors at that, prescribe it for treatment of heart disease and heart failure. I discovered it accidentally. I was in a large Asian grocery store in Orlando, and I spotted skid loads, entire truckloads of aloe vera juice up and down the aisles. When I turned to my wife and told her something's going on because no one could tell me why they drink it, she reminded me of Mr. C. So I purchased a case of juice with the highest concentration. Later I learned that that was the only case that contained the active enzymes. Most of the aloe vera juices on the market are very small concentrations, or they have been processed to prevent them from going rancid. That is, they call it stabilization or stabilized aloe vera juice. The particular juice that I bought was a high concentration, over 30%, and it was preserved in a sugar syrup with no heat and no freezing. When I first tried it, I had just manhandled a 300-pound rototiller in the garden for about an hour, and I felt pretty wasted. So I drank a can. The next morning I woke up completely regenerated, like nothing had happened. At first I thought, well, that's strange. A few days later, I received a bug bite while picking fruit from the fruit trees. That turned into cellulitis the first thing in the morning, and it was rapidly swelling. So I got ready to go to the emergency room, and I thought, well, I wonder what the aloe vera juice would do, and I drank a can. My hand swelling just went immediately down, and by dinner time there was no trace. I thought, well, that's strange. A week or two later, I caught the swine flu. For someone who is recovering from heart failure, as I was, the swine flu is a potentially deadly complication. And I was hanging in there, just feeling bad. I drank a can of the aloe vera juice, and within 2 hours, the symptoms went away, the flu was gone. And I thought, whoa, I have to check this out. So I began clinical research and found a very large 5-year study by Agarwal, MD, reported in the American College of Angiology in November 1984. It involved 5,000 heart disease subjects with arteriosclerosis for 5 years. They were assigned to eat 100 grams, or approximately a quarter pound, of fresh aloe vera gel from inside the leaf with a psyllium laxative fiber added. At the end of the 5-year study, all 5,000 subjects were still alive. 95% of the subjects had improved dramatically. 5% made no change. Typical mortality rates for heart disease patients should have seen 94 to 225 deaths in the test group. So it was a rather extraordinary improvement. Whenever you see an improvement above 65% in a clinical study, it's nothing short of noteworthy or even miraculous. In that study, 3,167 were diabetic, 2,572 had a history of smoking, 2,151 had hypertension or high blood pressure. Of those, 1,360 were mild hypertension and 791 were moderate. Smoking was not allowed, alcohol was not allowed, and at the end, there was also the regular heart drugs, beta blockers, verapamil, as well as B vitamins added in, and diuretics and digoxin. Most of the patients started responding in the second week of the study. Heart angina disappeared rather quickly. And after 3 months to 1 year, 93% returned to normal EKG tracing after treadmill testing. None of the patients suffered a new myocardial infarction or heart attack. Serum cholesterol and serum triglycerides returned to normal in 93% of the subjects. And of the diabetic subjects, 2,990 had their oral hypoglycemic medications withdrawn after 2 months by their doctors. Their blood sugar levels declined to the point they could manage it with diet alone. Of the diabetic subjects, 177 or 5.5% did not respond. And the total number of test subjects who did not respond to treatment was 525, including that 177 diabetics. So nothing sort of miraculous recovery. When I began to take aloe vera juice, 170 grams per day, in the beginning of June, I noticed toward the end of July that I could bicycle up hills without downshifting any longer. I thought that's rather noteworthy, so I went on some very long rides and found I had pretty much returned to normal as where I was before I contracted heart failure. A week later, I had my normal annual echocardiogram workup that actually took digital images of the heart, measured heart flow, valve leakages, size, everything. And when I went into the doctor the following week, he asked me, how am I doing? I said, well, I feel back to normal, which is crazy talk. Any heart failure patient is permanently, terminally a heart failure patient until they die. My doctor just smiled, sort of knowingly, and he says, let's look at your test results. And his eyes bug out. He says, what are you taking? Your heart shrunk in half back to normal size. All of your valves have just sealed. There are no leaks. Your ejection fraction is normal. You're normal, perfect, normal, perfect. Every test result was normal. He says, you don't have heart failure anymore. Now, how can aloe vera consumption regenerate a scarred and damaged heart? That's a big question. Well, it took quite a few books, 4 years of research before I could put this into a book, because I knew this would be the most controversial aspect, even though there was a very large clinical trial. Some of the scientific textbooks are as much as $160. These are published by scientific research companies. Tom Reynolds at Kew Gardens, Jodrell Laboratory, spent 27 years researching the therapeutic and clinical aspects of aloe vera. And he put together a book called Aloes, the genus Aloe, and in it was contained contributions from many different areas of science, major laboratories, pharmaceutical companies, medical institutes, universities, and even botanical institutes throughout the world. They found there are only 5 varieties that are medicinal of the aloe vera. So just don't go run out and grab an aloe vera leaf from your garden and eat it. There's a few varieties that are poisonous. There are 284 varieties cataloged and over 400 are expected. The variety of aloe vera that is planted in plantations and harvested in the USA, South America, Central America, Thailand, Vietnam, India, and most of the Caribbean islands, as well as the Canary Islands and parts of Middle East, is called Aloe vera barbadensis Miller. Other names include Curacao aloe, blue aloe, and aloe Chinese. This is the variety called aloe vera or true aloe. There are other medicinal aloes called Cape aloe, Socotrine aloe, Natal aloe, and Bombay aloe. This is the number 2 export product from Thailand, and there are plantations across the U.S. in Florida and the Southwest, Mexico, Guatemala. All of these serve the produce market to grocery stores in various parts of the United States. Mature leaves are typically 20 inches or longer, weighing 1 to 2 pounds. The produce code, the National Grocery Produce Code, is 3064. Most of the demand for aloe vera leaves in the USA comes from immigrants from South America, Central America, Vietnam, and the Caribbean islands. In Florida, Publix supermarket sells 300 cases each week. That represents 14,000 individual servings per week just in Florida. It's commonplace in various parts of the earth, and yet some online experts would have you believe that aloe vera consumption is a recent fad. Actually, it's been in consumption as a medicinal for thousands of years. Alexander the Great even conquered the island of Socotra just to obtain the aloe leaves from their plantations for treating wounded soldiers. The research fills volumes, so many different books that my own library has 10, but there are close to 20 or 30 books on aloe vera as a medicinal. Packaged brands of aloe vera juice that are available from health food stores are almost entirely devoid of the enzymes necessary for heart failure recovery. An FDA directive requires that stabilized aloe juices be distilled. So one researcher has tested every brand on the market and only found 1% had the therapeutic enzymes that he tested for. They may have some still left, but not the entire suite of enzymes. These enzymes are damaged outside of a temperature range of 5 degrees C to 30 degrees C. So that works out to 41 degrees Fahrenheit to 86 degrees Fahrenheit. After I had totally regenerated in a matter of 10 to 12 weeks, I no longer could detect aloe vera juices that were not effective. Before I totally regenerated, I could tell just by taking a drink and running a fairly long bicycle run. So the recommendation is to find fresh leaves from your produce section. Your produce section may not have them, but you can ask the produce manager if he will order them from his produce supplier. The Caribbean islanders immigrating to the U.S. have driven up quite a bit of demand, so it is available. You may have to order them by mail, and that is possible too if you check online. There are various sources. But packaged aloe vera juices, no matter how exotic the story by the supplier is, if it's not yellowish and full of pulp, it has been distilled. If it looks like water, it is water. There is a group of aloe vera juice manufacturers that have formed an organization called the International Aloe Science Council, or IASC. They have a seal of approval that makes consumers feel the product is 100% pure. 5 of those member manufacturers produce full-strength pure product when tested. Some, though, produce product that has as little as 15% of the mucopolysaccharide enzymes that are tested. They still meet the IASC approval standards, yet they contain a fraction of the therapeutic enzymes. I purchased 38 medicinal aloe vera plants several years ago and put them in 7-gallon pots. And I keep them in the shade. They seem to be sunburned in the direct sun. If the air temperature drops below 40 degrees, they're burned, so I have to move them into my garage whenever the winter temperatures drop below that point. It's about 3,000 pounds of pots. I just use a furniture hand truck. It's quite a workout, but I can do it in about 45 to 50 minutes. Preparing aloe vera for consumption is fairly simple. You take a fresh mature leaf, cut off a 6 to 8 inch length, and then slice off the skin like you're skinning a fish. There's a sticky sap right underneath the skin that you need to wash off that contains a powerful laxative called aloin. That was the laxative that was used for centuries as a medicinal product marketed. But there's no need to become laxative dependent by leaving it on the leaf. Just wash it off. And then the Caribbean Islanders typically will cube up the gel, add a little sugar, and eat it. I, for one, throw it in the blender for 2 or 3 seconds and mix it with some vegetable juice. As aloe leaves get older, they get bitter, so the vegetable juice buffers that. There are side effects. Diabetics, 95.5% of diabetics in the Agrawal study essentially had their blood sugar return to normal. And if you're taking diabetic medications, those medications could cause low blood sugar. So you will have to work with your doctor to measure your blood sugar and adjust the medication dosage if you're among that high percentage that are cured by the aloe vera. I've noticed a 5% body weight gain in the growth of new muscles. Aloe vera contains natural plant sterols that regenerate muscle tissue. The heart is a muscle, but your arms, your legs, all part of your body have muscles. So you will have growth in those muscles, not abnormally, not like synthetic steroids that baseball players take, but just more than normal. So be aware there's a small weight gain there. I find that most who consume aloe vera juice daily without a single break no longer contract influenza or cold infections, viral infections. I haven't caught one in 5 years, at least not one that took me down. It's amazing. A friend of mine went 43 years without a single infection, but there was a period when his aloe plants were damaged and he stopped taking it, and he caught his first flu in 43 years. He was so miserable it was pitiful, but he knew it was his own fault. He needed to get more leaves. As noted in the Agrawal study, test subjects had their blood pressure drop closer to normal. So watch it if you're taking hypertensive medicines because you may have to back off in the amount. There have been a report of one case of hepatitis, but I could not track down to prove that was actually true. Aloe vera leaves are raised in plantations, and they probably use manure for fertilization. So you need to wash each leaf because that's a source of hepatitis. High doses of the latex sap that you should wash off can cause diarrhea. And aloe is in the lily family, so if you're allergic to garlic, onions, tulips, or hyacinths, then you could be allergic to aloe, so take it easy. How does aloe vera juice regenerate a heart? There are 75 known ingredients in 8 different categories. It contains 19 of 20 essential amino acids, actually of the needed amino acids, and 7 of the 8 essential amino acids. There are also monosaccharide sugars, glucose, fructose, as well as ace-mannan. It seems that the glucomannose in aloe vera activates your immune system cells called NK cells, or natural killer cells. These cells target abnormal human cells, such as damaged heart muscle cells and cells with defective DNA coding. They direct the immune system T cells to take action and destroy those abnormal cells and replace them. So therefore, it's basically a search and destroy enzyme that replaces your heart muscle tissues and regenerates your heart back to normal. That's what it did for me. That's what it did in the Agrawal clinical trials. The information in this book and this chapter may be somewhat shocking to some doctors, yet in a review of the National Clinical Database, the NCBI, there are now 2,380 scientific papers on aloe vera, and 43 of those are related to heart studies and treatment. It's not the fountain of youth. You will live a longer life, yet many people will still die of old age later in life. A friend in Tampa who runs an aloe vera juice bar, his father lived to be 109 on a daily diet. His aunts and uncles lived to be older. So just keep in mind, it's not the cure of cancer, it's not the cure of all diseases, but it does regenerate heart muscle tissue to affect heart failure recovery. My name is J. Randall Wilkerson. I'm author of the Heart Failure Recovery Plan, Successful Heart Regeneration Using Metabolic Enzymes. This book is available at Amazon in print and Kindle editions, at the Apple iTunes Store in an iBooks edition, on eBay in print edition, and direct from the publisher, Wilkerson & Hughes, P.O. Box 777, Altoona, Florida 32702. Just send a check for $24. Thank you.